Our speaker is Victoria Yerofeyeva from National Research University Higher School of Economics in Moscow, Russia. Today, she presents her talk on the topic, Emerging Adults' Narratives About Their Autonomy in Romantic Relationships.
Good afternoon, dear listeners. I thank the organizers for the opportunity to present the results of our study at the Third International Conference of Love Studies. My name is Victoria, and I'm a PhD in psychology. I work as a researcher and teacher at National Research University Higher School of Economics. And today I'm going to present the results of the study that my colleagues and I have done within the framework of psychology. It's titled Emerging Adults' Narratives About Their Romantic Relationships. Let's begin with the theoretical background. I would like to begin by defining some key concepts. As I have already mentioned, this is a psychological study conducted using self-determination theory, a concept of emerging adulthood, and narrative psychology. In our study, we examined young people aged 18 to 29 who are considered emerging adults. This is the modern stage of adulthood, which in today's world has extended to the third decade of life. It's a time of searching for identity, experimentation, and the gradual acquisition of adult roles, but it is also a time of high risk and instability for psychological well-being, for which autonomy is one of the important factors. So, the next key point is autonomy. Autonomy is defined based on self-determination theory, which understands it as a person's ability to pursue their goals and values and to listen to their feelings. Decision-making is considered a significant criterion for the manifestation of autonomy, especially in the context of life choices that affect a change in destiny. One such decision is a decision in romantic relationships, which are also a developmental task. The young people learn to maintain autonomy in close relationships, and another developmental task is constructed a life narrative, that is a story about oneself that also reflects autonomy. Therefore, in our study, we integrated these approaches and constructed the following theoretical framework. Autonomy is the ability to make decisions and construct a narrative about oneself in the context of romantic relationships, the construction of which is a developmental task during emerging adulthood. So, the relevance of the study stems from the fact that young people need to learn to be autonomous in relationships. However, this doesn't always happen intuitively, as any number imbalances are possible. For example, young people may lose autonomy due to a strong need to be in a relationship, or controversially, become excessively withdrawn and avoid relationships, prioritizing their careers. The situation is further complicated by the fact that young people lack experience coping with difficulties, so they may lack resilience when faced with relationship challenges. Now I want to tell some words about the choice itself. And in today's world, we see a multiple choices, and this diversity, on the one hand, enhances people's lives and their well-being, however, and people can feel the tyranny of choice, as psychologist Schwartz called this process. That is, people feel the pressure of multiple autonomies, and they are unable to choose and abandon them altogether. Or, conversely, they endlessly consider options, not settling on one if they don't match their expectations. And of course, when we talk about romantic relationships, people are guided primarily by emotions, but such emotional choices don't always ensure long-term happiness. Therefore, people understand that the optimal choice, even in this area, must also involve a rational mind. Thus, Both analytical and intuitive thinking are necessary when young people make decisions. We also want to highlight the age-specific aspects of this situation. The young people are more likely to rely on emotions when making relationship decisions, so mistakes can be painful. Psychologists should consider support measures during such periods, as this period is related to high risk for their well-being. Next, I'll say a few words about narrative. Narrative is an evolving story about oneself, which changes throughout the life under the influence of various circumstances. Life choices become such points of change, and we want to examine how decision-making is connected to autonomy and how this is embedded in one's own story. The aim of the study was to explore emerging adults' autonomy as life decisions in their romantic relationships. The data collection methods was interview. The coding method was McAdams' narrative analysis. In this type of analysis, great attention is paid to authorship as autonomy, that is, to how a person deals with the life events that happen to him, to what extent he or she controls them throughout his or her choices. This type of analysis places a strong emphasis on authorship as autonomy. That is how a person deals with these circumstances and to which extent they control the life changes. Based on these ideas, we developed an interview guide in which we asked young people to describe their romantic relationship histories based on the decisions they made. We asked questions about how these decisions relate to their own values, goals, and their role in the relationship. Our study involved 23 respondents aged from 18 to 25, living in Russian cities with a population of over 1 million. In this slide, you can see research questions about the connections between autonomy and the decisions they make, the own assessment of those choices, and the decisions they perceive as turning points in their narratives. Now, I want to show you the interview guide, some questions from the interview. We asked respondents to describe their romantic relationship histories and explored the construct of autonomy to determine how independently they made these decisions and what their primary values and preferences were. We also learned about our respondents' status and make some conclusions about their relations with autonomy and age specifics. Now let's discuss the coding procedure. We drew on key concepts from self-determination theory, emergent adulthood, and narrative psychology. We developed a coding scheme, which you can see in the slide, and we coded independently their narratives and then tested the functionality of our scheme and the extent to which we were coding in the same way. We discussed any discrepancies before making a decision. Now I want to move on to results. Okay, first of all, I will discuss how we defined autonomy. We considered it high if a person said they made decisions independently, envisioned a future with their partner, and took the initiative to develop the relationship. We defined autonomy as low if respondents said they ended up in a relationship because it was proposed to them. They were chosen and they hadn't figured out their feelings and didn't truly understand whether they wanted the relationship. The most significant life decisions in romantic relationships were starting a relationship, living together, preparing for a wedding, making plans together, breaking up, giving up on a relationship. Regarding relationship status, 7 study participants were in long-term romantic relationships, 16 respondents were single, 10 of whom had experienced relationships, and 6 respondents had never experienced relationships. We also observed an interesting trend that reflects the principle of mature personality. Our respondents initially demonstrated low autonomy and reliance on emotions in decision making, but later reported high autonomy and reliance on rationality. Furthermore, decisions to initiate a relationship were typically made emotionally, while decisions to end it were made rationally, highlighting the importance of both emotion and rationality in romantic relationships within the context of people's lives. Our results reflect the core ideas of the theories we used. Indeed, in the absence of life experience, respondents are more likely to make mistakes and choose the wrong partners, or they may reject a choice, falling into a state of being chosen. However, as we saw, such relationships end and respondents gain life experience which they convert into a narrative. The findings of other studies that romantic relationship decisions are primarily made emotionally were also confirmed. However, we also observed an interesting trend toward integration with rationality when respondents make breakup decisions. Another trend is the transformation of autonomy through the decision to separate when respondents move from low to high autonomy and at the same time their decisions become rational. We also spoke with respondents who demonstrated a high level of autonomy. They made only rational decisions in romantic relationships and at the same time rated the experience as positive. Also, during emerging adulthood, young people describe how to balance relationship with professional self-fulfillment. And we discovered a group of people who had never entered into relationships, prioritizing professional fulfillment. This is interesting because they don't rule out the possibility of building a relationship in the future, but are not yet ready to put in the effort. Next, I will present several slides with quotes demonstrating the results obtained. I want to read them. First one. I was unconscious in my choices in romantic relationships. Someone from the opposite sex became interested in me, and I didn't understand my feelings and needs. I jumped into this relationship, but I received little for myself. After 8 months, I understood that this is not what I wanted, that I was going in the wrong direction. I decided to break up. About a year ago, I met my current girlfriend. Before we started dating, we had been communicating for 6 months. At that moment, I already realized that we had gone through a lot together, joyful and sad events. My third choice was a conscious one. I have never regretted it. I think that this is conscious choice which I came to arose on my experience. This is the quote of the male who is 19 years old. Next one. We met. It was an absolute coincidence, as we had known each other for 5 years. I made a series of quick decisions that worked on my brain, neurochemistry, and neurobiology because I needed dopamine, a release of some pleasant emotions and sensations. I very quickly made some decisions which then brought consequences, like 6 months of the romantic relationship development were packed into a month. I realized that I could not go on like this and made the rational decision to end this relationship. This is the quote from female who is 25 years old. Next one. When I was drawn into a romantic relationship without making any choice, the circumstances just happened so that I became close to someone. But now I seem to have become more rational, evaluating everything. This person is not the most suitable choice because he is I'm calculating what could happen if I make such a choice. This quote is related to a female who is 23 years old. Next one. Feelings complicate many things, but sometimes they help. If you realize that this is not the right moment, you are floundering and you do not know what to do, what choice to make. The person who is close to you influences all this. It seems to be good, but you have some doubts. It seems you have done something wrong, and so it is hard. Romantic relationships choices are 10 out of 10 of their complexity. This is from female who is 19 years old. Next one. Romantic relationships are very difficult for me as if I had not yet grown up to it. I'm ready for them, but I cannot take the first step. This is from female who is 20 years old. Next. I very rarely talk about my feelings because I regard it as weakness. I have always been embarrassed when girls talk about their sympathies, but I'm silent like a partisan because it seems to me that if I tell someone that I like a boy, everyone will talk that this person will find out about it. That will be the end of my life. The initiative should lie with my partner. This is from female 25 years old. And two citations about emotional and rational choices to start and then romantic relationships. The first one is from male who's 24 years old. In a rational way, I rely on some criterion when deciding to start a relationship, but it's rather simple. In retrospect, after the fact, I understood what criteria work for me, but it is not that I'm like that. The tick for speaking beautifully. I just find myself fascinated all the time by people who speak beautifully. And the next one from the male who's 23 years old. This is about rational decision to break up. My last decision that I made about 6 months ago, I had a girlfriend with whom we had been in relationships for 5 years, and I decided that I needed to end this relationship. This solution was 10 out of 10 in difficulty, but I had no doubt that it was correct. So I would like to conclude here. As I've already said, our study examined autonomy in emerging adulthood. Autonomy was defined as the ability to be an author and make decisions in one's own way. We demonstrated various trends that describe changes in the level of autonomy and the quality of decisions that people make in their romantic relationships. We believe these results may be interesting for practical work aimed at increasing authenticity through self-awareness. Thank you for your attention, and I will be happy to answer your questions.